Hey guys, Mark Ferrasci. In one of my yak sessions as far as the current affairs in our politics and everything, last night, as you've probably heard, if you're anything to do with pro-democracy and stay on this topic as much as I do, you've already seen it on the news where Trump made a post last night about Rob Rieners' death and threw it back and made a lot of negative comments in regards to what happened. It's just disgusting. A lot of people even on his side are upset about it. You know, to have a leader that's supposed to be our president and have certain values to be spouting that kind of crap, it's obviously he's not right in the head. We've known it for a long time on our side, but trying to convince their side is impossible. But somebody posted a reply on one of the threads I was reading. I'll paraphrase it. It was talking about that the people with this hate and racism in them and all this attitude that they're following and mirroring their fearless leader is not going to go away as long as you have something like faux news that is spouting all this stuff. And I said exactly, you're right. These people will just go right back under their rocks. And as long as somebody's feeding that fire of their racism and hate and prejudice and all the stuff that comes from that type of personality, type of person, is being fed by Fox News, right? And you say news is not news. When they suffered their lawsuit, in the lawsuit, the judge stated certain facts. One of those facts was that it wasn't real news. It's misinformation. They lost the lawsuit and they got nailed for a lot of friggin' money. I forgot what the amount was, but a lot. We all saw it. But yet they suffered the lawsuit. They had to pay a lot of money out, and then they just kept the same broadcasting behavior, right? Now, my point of view is that these people are not going to go away in that regards. It reminds me of when I like to tell this story because it really is the same thing. When I was a kid, I'd go through the grocery store line with my mom, and she would right away head to that Inquirer magazine. And that's kind of where it all started at all. It's the same kind of a slant, except they even make themselves seem more real, right? But it's the same thing. You ever pick up the Inquirer? They're talking about Sasquatch and all these different conspiracy type crap, and it's just wild stories that are just, it's like The Onion, right? The Onion online is the same kind of fabrication. So that's kind of what the slant started from, but they became even more serious and acted like they were the news all the more, where these weak-minded people that fall for that kind of crap fall right into that trench, and then they're affected by it, and then it feeds that natural instinct of racism, hate, all the stuff that makes that person who they are anyway, feeds off of that, right? So their point of view was, you're not going to stop this until when you've got Fox News feeding that fire, right? So here's my point. With that lawsuit, here's what they should have done, and they still can. Sue them again, right? Go after them again, period, right? And make them, the judge needs to state in his final determination, he needs to state that they are required to put lower thirds up and chyrons everywhere as people go through that and they get onto the news. Right away, they should have a big old banner that says, "We are entertainment. We are not real news," or whatever it may be that makes them state this fact, so that these weak-minded people that feed into this, that are being fed by this situation that we got going on with faux news, ends up having a check on it. At least it's right in front of their face telling them that, right? Every day, right? I used to tell my mom all the time it was crazy, and I'd look at that stuff, but she believed it, right? That's that type of a mentality. This person is willing to fall into conspiracy theories and false type stuff, and they feed off of this, right? It's kind of I look at it as a weak-minded person. I'm not going to say they're crazy. They're not crazy, but they need to be reminded all the time that it's entertainment, that this is not real. Right? And so as far as I'm concerned, that judge needs to, and we need to figure out a way to make faux news end up stating for a fact that they're not real news. Stop letting them do that. You're feeding the fire with all these people that are a little bit not off in the head, and they're fed by their racism, by their hate, by their who they are as an individual. They're fed by that, right? You're only putting fuel on the fire. And it's not going to go away until you figure out a way to stop that fuel on the fire for these people that are all into the conspiracy theories. The guy that went on Pizzagate trying to say that the liberals were all there, they're raping kids, and then it ends up being all on their side. Where do you think they got it? It's always projection, isn't it? Think about it. Projection of what they were doing, and then they create this whole thing, and now it's coming back on them because of that. It's coming back on Trump because of that, right? They wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't be in this situation with all the Epstein files and all that, because they were the ones that chased that. They never thought that it would get to the point that we would force them to put all that stuff out, right? And tell the truth. and face the facts that all that stuff was happening on Capitol Hill with the Democrats and the Republicans that are up. Those all those powerful people that are playing with Epstein, right? And some of them were jumping in and doing the wrong thing with all those little girls. Other ones just went to the party, but they were still complicit because they still knew what was going on. They're not stupid. And they just ignored it, but because they wanted to just go rub shoulders with that high mucky mucks, right? Even those that weren't into going into that room with the little kids, right? But there were a bunch of them that were, right? And that's what Epstein was all about, right? That whole network throughout the world was taking advantage of children, right? And we all know what was going on. We're not stupid. So we need to figure out a way, sue them again, whatever it is, make them put chyrons up, make them put lower thirds and have it stating the fact that they're entertainment, that they're not real news. Have it right in front of their face as we start to sweep them out of office and go after everything and get our power back and turn things to the proper place that it should be. Right? Get all our checks and balances in, rebuild it. It's going to be a lot of work to recover it, and then to fix all that mental damage that's been done on our fellow man in our society. Right? We got to get it to go to bed. We got to chase those snakes right back up underneath the rocks, and that racism and that hate and that anger and everything that man has fed and created. Right? Demonizing the other constantly. Everything he does with his politics is all about that. And it feeds a fire and a sickness in our country that's tearing us apart, right? Those on the pro-democracy side and the Democrats, we know what's going on. We're not stupid, right? We need to rebuild our country and put it all back together. It's going to take a long time. And we want a two-party system. Why? Because we're no better than them if we want one party, and we're just as susceptible to being human too. Greed, fraud, that's all part of who we are as humans, right? The checks and balance system kept it where it was. You knew better because you knew the inspector general from whatever department could come in and catch your ass and throw you in jail, right? Those investigations of it. We've always had a checks and balance system because we're always very well aware of the fact that we're all human, right? We're just as human. We're just as susceptible to greed and to fraud and everything else as anybody else, right? We're no better than them. We're not saying that they are the thieves, they are the liars, no. It's human nature. That's why we set up the system the way we have it set up. To have a checks and balance system that keeps us being honest, because we're all susceptible to doing something stupid, right? We're all human. So enough of that. You guys have a good day. I thank you very much, and hopefully one day we'll get through this. And the tricky part's going to be able to get them to come out of the rabbit hole, to get out of that cult mentality, and to be coming back into our society as hopefully a healthy person that's not so much into conspiracy theories and all this stuff that's caused the problems that we've got, right? We'll figure out a way. There's some smart people in our country, but I really believe that it's going to be on the psychologist side. It's going to have to be psychologists that help us figure out how to get these folks out of the rabbit hole, to get them out of the cult, to get them recovered and get them thinking good thoughts, right? I saw a commercial the other day that really miffed me, and I hate this, where they were basically trying to say, and it was from the Christian right crap, trying to say that it was wrong for our system to want to indoctrinate our children to love their country, right? When I was a kid, did this Pledge of Allegiance, I did all these things that taught me to love my country. I learned government, I learned how my government worked, the three systems of government, and the checks and balances. I have a pretty good idea of how our government works, right? And it's the ignorance of those that have never gone to learn and understand. But this adventure that we're having, this situation that we're having in our country right now, is causing everybody to be inundated with getting educated, right? There's a lot of smart people with podcasts talking to us all the time. And I'm constantly learning things that I never knew because all this stuff is coming to light. Our side is doing that. It's not their side, right? Our side is trying to educate, to teach, learn, step back, right? And as I always say, educate yourself, right? That's the key, right? Understanding how things work and what is happening is the most important thing. And don't let yourself slip into being a conspiracy nut, right? I have a tendency to do it too. I don't trust anything, and I have a tendency to kind of go to that edge, but I try to stop myself. All right, enough said. Mark Ferrasci signing off. You guys have a good day, guys.